Welcome back, everyone. This is Audacity, the Velocity OKC Show, Episode 7. My name is Nate Fisher. I'm the Director of Communications here at the Greater OKC Chamber.
And I'm Kaylee Terracina, the Senior Marketing Manager. We have a really full show for you guys today. Up first,
We really do.
Special guest, the Oklahoma City Mayor himself, David Holt, is stopping by to talk all things Maps 4. So make sure you stick around to listen to that. Then we're going to go over a new motorcycle DIY garage that Nate has lots of thoughts about. So get ready to hear
OkiMoto.
those.
Very
OkiMoto,
cool.
yep. And we'll talk about Bar Ciccetti and their excellent happy hour specials, which we have both partaken of, which are excellent. And we're also going to do a little preview of the Oklahoma City Thunder that started their season this week.
That's right. And we're also going to give you a little information about the OK Bio Brewfest.
That's coming up in 2 weeks.
That's right. That's right. So that's something you want to get out to check out, especially if you're a craft beer fan. Okay, so now we're just going to get right into it with the interview that Mayor Holt was kind enough to do with us on Maps 4. So, and then we'll be back right after that with some of their other cool things to let you know about in Oklahoma City. Today on Audacity, this is episode 7, and we'd like to welcome a very special guest. It's, as you can see, Oklahoma City's 36th mayor, David Holt. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And Mayor Holt is here to talk to us about a couple things, but most notably Maps 4. So if you are a regular watcher or a listener of this podcast, you've seen that we've talked about Maps quite a bit. We did some coverage from the kickoff. We talked a lot about the city council presentation before those occurred. So if you'd like to go back and kind of get a primer on some of the projects specifically and how all those things rolled out, episode 5 is a really good thing to go back to and see and watch and listen and get a little bit of a primer on that. But we're going to talk a little bit more about Maps today with Mayor Holt. So Kaylee?
Yeah, absolutely. I know we are knee deep in the middle of the campaign. It seems like you are everywhere talking about these projects. So tell me, what's your elevator pitch that you're giving to people when you're trying to spread the news about this campaign?
Yeah, I mean, the basics are that this is the program that has changed our city over the last 26 years. You know, this is Maps, and Maps has changed the way we see ourselves and the way the world sees us, and we certainly want to keep that momentum going. And I think with this package, we want to see that renaissance that we've all felt has happened in Oklahoma City extended to the whole city and all our residents. All the basics of Maps are in place. It's a 1-cent sales tax for 8 years. It's temporary. It doesn't take on debt. It's overseen by a citizen advisory board. It's not a tax increase. I find that's probably the single most important thing people want to hear. It just preserves the sales tax rate where it currently is because there's a street sales tax that's going away. And it's, in this case, 16 projects, an estimated $978 million. The 16 projects really fall into 4 buckets. There's neighborhood needs, there's human needs, there's quality of life, kind of entertainment needs, and then finally there's a jobs sort of economic growth component as well. That really covers the waterfront. It's a broad package. There's really kind of something in there for everybody. But at its core, it preserves this renaissance. And as I said, really takes the power of Maps out into the neighborhoods and into our daily lives.
Awesome. So you have a really unique point of view in that you were the chief of staff under Mayor Cornett during Maps 3 in 2009. Now you're doing this as mayor. What are the differences that you're seeing in Oklahoma City?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's been 10 years since Maps 3 passed, and I think we're in a transition now, demographically, generationally, politically. I really view my tenure as mayor as sort of overseeing that transition, and I think Maps 4 illustrates that transition. There's a reason that the theme of this campaign is Love Your OKC. It's a lot of emotional issues in here, a lot of human issues in Maps 4, and that's where the people's heads are at, and that is a bit of a transition. That's in 2009, and in 1993 when this all began, the crisis was still, downtown and sort of nothing to do here, and that we had to address sort of our quality of life and our entertainment, our lack of entertainment venues. Well, having done that for 25 years, the people's heads in 2019 are in issues like mental health and substance abuse and homelessness and domestic violence. And so though there are some projects in Maps 4 that are like Maps 1 and 3 with, the arena and the state fair and a multi-purpose stadium, 70% of the package is going to neighborhood and human needs. that represent seemingly the crisis of 2019. And ultimately, I think if you look at all the maps, it's always about triaging whatever crisis we're facing. In 1993, the crisis was everything, really. Like, we didn't have anything. So we started with, let's build some fun stuff so people even want to live here, Look at Maps for Kids, that was the crisis of education, and specifically our school buildings were crumbling. Maps 3 was kind of finishing up some of what we had started in Maps 1. Hey, we did some good stuff in Maps 1, but we still could use a great urban park. This downtown streetcar will tie everything together. The convention center we built in Maps 1 was probably not adequate for the city we want to have. But now you look at Maps 4, and to answer your question, how it's different, is we're looking more out into the neighborhoods, we're looking more into people's daily lives, and we're just making sure that everybody feels this Maps renaissance. And again, for the traditionalists, there's still some good stuff in there. I mean, for some people, the idea that this package would just retain the thunder is like all they care about, and that's certainly an element of it. So, again, it's kind of something in there for everybody.
Awesome.
Yeah. And the other thing that I'd like you to speak about a little bit is just, the fact that just in terms of, and you mentioned how the scope is quite a bit larger here, 16 projects. I think that was a little bit of a surprise to everybody to see that everything that was presented to the council ended up being able to be included, which is a really cool thing. But really kind of talk about the comprehensive nature of the package. And it really seems like a lot of these tend to kind of work together in a way that really helps us, drive some of those goals forward that we have as a city.
Yeah, it's ultimately about the same length as Maps 3. Maps 3 was 7 years and 9 months. This is 8 years, so it's 3 months longer. There was Maps for Kids was 7 years. So, I mean, it's in the same range, just due to inflation and also, blessedly, economic growth.
Yeah.
The same number of years of a collection raises more money than it used to, So yeah, now we have the ability to have $978 million, and so the ability to add more projects, really. And some of the projects are a little different scale. I mean, there's a lot of 40 million and 50 million kind of, projects in here, but are transformational in those areas that they address. That's very important to note. And occasionally people are like, I just want to vote on, the thing. I just want to vote for the things I like and not the things I don't. And I always say, they all work together, First of all, I'm a big believer that compromise is how society moves forward. And that, the idea that I just get what I want and, I win, you lose, I fully recognize is a trendy American political viewpoint right now, but it never leads to any actual progress. And that's the idea of compromise, which is intrinsic to Maps really over 26 years, is why we're a city that's functioning right now. And when the state arguably has not been, and the federal government definitely has not been, we've still been moving forward. So occasionally when I hear people say, let's split it all up, I say that is there's a very deliberate reason why it's done this way. It's baked in compromise. Lots of different kinds of people in this city get to see their priorities addressed. And if you are seeing your priorities addressed in Maps 4, you can't hold it against other people that they get to see their priorities addressed as well. You have to be pleased with a compromise and with a broad spectrum of projects. To your point about them working together, I mean, yeah, that's another reason that it needs to be, kind of all or nothing, in that, when you look at them, sidewalks, walkability works with the transit. Exactly. You look at our county jail issues, and there's at least 2 projects that address that, but I could argue half the projects address that.
Absolutely.
I mean, the diversion hub directly addresses it by giving low-level offenders a different life path. Mm-hmm. The mental health center, crisis centers, hopefully give a new place for people to go that are having a mental health crisis that is not the county jail. But the youth centers give less directly impact things like the county jail by giving our young people a different outlet than a life of crime, And I could go on with all the ways that these projects work together and kind of comprehensively and holistically create a better city for everybody. So it's so important to think of it that way.
Right. Okay. Well, that's great. Now, I'm glad you mentioned not the willingness to not compromise and bad feelings and ill will, because I'm going to take us there a little bit. So
Yeah.
nobody can armchair.
Hit me with the tough stuff.
Nobody can armchair quarterback the policies of the powers that be like a keyboard commando on Twitter, right? So we did a quick scan, and we're just kind of looking at some of the things that people might be saying and some of the concerns that people have. So
which, as you know, I always address head on.
You do. You've been absolutely great about that. So what would you say to the people that say something like, well, why are we worried about all this like charitable program type stuff? I'm working on that.
Twitter's voice
this
right
is
there.
my. I'm angry. I thought Maps was all about building things. So
Right.
What about that?
Yeah, so you're talking about kind of the human needs element of Maps 4, and actually, I've heard that occasionally that it's not capital. If you actually look at all the projects we're doing, they're all buildings.
We're building stuff.
They're all buildings. There isn't really early on in the conversation, like back January. I think there was some talk of the possibility of programmatic Maps funding that would maybe be in an endowment. But ultimately, we just didn't go that direction. So everything we're doing, even if it's addressing a human need like mental health or substance abuse, it's a building, basically.
Right.
So it's still a building in all 16 of the projects. And so that is that's a map staple that is really continued here. Now, the subject matter is a little different, and I just get back kind of to my earlier answer, which is that's what people want, and that's what I think arguably the city needs. I mean, I think that's where the issues are. We didn't really pass over like a whole bunch of big, sexy downtown venues and go do this stuff. There really wasn't anything. If you look at the last 25 years, we've built a ballpark, an arena, a downtown streetcar, a beautiful Central Park. We've been building a convention center. We've got the canal. I mean, we've put virtually all the major elements of a great American downtown in place. Where there was some need for upgrades, we got that with the arena. And where there's maybe one little, I'd say, exception that we hadn't built yet, which is the multi-purpose stadium, we've got to step forward in that direction. Right. But, other than that, the crisis that had risen with so much work being done on these downtown venues, the crisis that had come up was everything else, the rest of the city. Scissortail Park's beautiful, but, people are living a mile away from a unmowed field with a rusty swing set in it, and they're saying, why can't I have some little version of Scissortail Park a little closer to my house? We have over 150 neighborhood parks in our city that have been really neglected. So that's in there, and so it's really important that people understand that this is what we were hearing from the citizens in what was the most inclusive and transparent, Maps creation process that we've ever had. And I think it's not just supported by that sort of anecdotal experience. It's been supported by polls I've seen, both public and private. People want to see mental health. They want to see substance abuse. They want to see those things addressed. And again, we're addressing it through capital building projects, which has been the strength of Maps. And so I'm glad that aligned here.
Okay. Well, so kind of on the flip side of that, sometimes we'll hear things like, well, why isn't this particular Maps all about, people and neighborhoods? Why are we building stuff? Why are we building big things?
Yeah, well, I mean, that would be more of the I don't like the arena, I don't like the state fair, I don't like the stadium, And that's where I get back to, it's funny. I mean, okay, so in the morning I'll talk to somebody who's like, I only want these big, sexy projects. In their mind, that's what Maps has always been. They sort of forget Maps for kids, by the way. But we've kind of done Maps for neighborhoods before.
Right. Exactly.
But they'll say, I think Maps should just be stadiums and arenas, I don't want all that social service stuff, And then in the afternoon, I'll talk to somebody who's like, well, there is nobody who wants these stadiums. And what I realize is, everybody lives in their echo chambers.
That's so true.
And social media helps create that world for yourself where everybody thinks like you. And as mayor, you're sort of forced to get out of your echo chamber and you kind of sample all of them, And so what I tell the person I met in the morning who only likes arenas and stadiums and the person I met in the afternoon who only thinks we should be focused on homelessness is you're both wrong. We have to, as I said earlier, have a package that addresses many needs in our community. And both sides think that everybody thinks like them, and that's where they're really wrong. I mean, is that is that there are people whose number one thing in this package is the stadium.
Right.
Lots of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not like 5 people, not just the owners of a team or something. It's thousands of people, and there are, and by the same token, there are absolutely people who are only focused on homelessness or Palomar or whatever, and that's great, right? I mean, but they need to understand not everybody thinks like them, and so again, this thing we call organized society, only works when we accept that there are other people who think differently than us, and that they should get to win too, if that's possible. As a mayor, I want outcomes where everybody wins.
Sure.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't apologize for that.
Yeah.
Again, in American politics, it's right now, it's like if you accept these compromised outcomes, you've somehow failed or something. And I think it's the exact opposite. We've got to get back to, in America, what built this country. In Oklahoma City, really at the municipal level, we've never lost that. And I'm not going to be the mayor that encourages its loss. I'm going to be the mayor that continues to encourage this idea of compromise, finding common purpose. I ran on this, won OKC. That meant that everybody wins. And in Maps 4, I think everybody is winning to a far greater extent than ever before.
Sure.
I mean, if your thing is neighborhood and human needs, those were largely absent from Maps 1 and Maps 3. Maps 3 had sidewalks and senior centers, but that was a minor part financially of the package. This time it's over 70% of the package. So, high five your friend and declare victory.
Right.
This is a seismic shift towards neighborhood and human needs this time. Which again, it's happening because that's where I think the voters' heads are at. And again, if that's not your thing, there's still good stuff in there. The State Fair Arena is literally crumbling. It's the largest economic impact of any public facility, and there's a lot of people who like that kind of thing. They want to see the economic impact of Maps.
Absolutely.
Well, that's in there. Again, the Thunder's lease expires in 3 years. We've got to have a facility that meets national standards if we expect to keep that team and keep all the concerts we enjoy, all those things.
City owns the arena.
Yeah, it's our arena. That's in there. And we think the only top 50 city without a multi-purpose stadium.
Right.
And so it's going to be usable for our professional soccer team, but it's also going to attract concerts we don't currently get. It's going to be a venue we can't even host, we're Oklahoma City. We're the capital and largest city of a football crazy state that cannot even host the 5A and 6A football championships in our city. Yeah. So we'll be able to do that. We'll be able to host, college championship events. So again, if you're like kind of a Maps 1 purist and you think like arenas and stadiums are your thing, that's in there too. But if you're not, 70% of the package is neighborhood and human needs. So everybody wins, and that's nothing to apologize for. That's exactly how it should be.
I think that's right. And honestly, one of the hallmarks of Oklahoma City's success and renaissance over the past 25, 30 years is really that idea of everyone kind of coming together, pulling on the same rope, all those sorts of things. And so I think that's great to hear you say those kinds of things. So that's great. When you're talking to people, what's kind of one of the biggest misconceptions about Maps, or something that people may not know that you'd maybe like to address?
I think, I'd say the first thing, it's not a misconception, maybe just a lack of knowledge, would be that it's not a tax increase. I always want to make sure people know that.
Absolutely.
They don't necessarily know our municipal finance
system. No new
taxes. So that's important. I think the second thing is operations. Let me go back on that. Back in Maps 1, it was building stuff. And when you build stuff and you open it, obviously there are operation and maintenance costs. And in Maps 1, they took some of the tax that resulted from it. Technically, the use tax, we're not going to get into those weeds. That gets complicated. But basically, some of the proceeds from Maps were set aside into operational endowments, essentially, to fund the operations of those projects once they opened. We actually have about $1 million left still in the Maps 1 operational endowment, 26 years later. So that was very effective in getting those projects kind of on their feet. We didn't do that in Maps 3. And, as a policymaker, I mean, it's working out. We're going to be okay. Yeah. But, there are operational costs associated with the streetcar, with the park, with River Sport, which was different in that wasn't really expected with River Sport. And so, it's a challenge. I mean, again, we're dealing with it. Nobody's going bankrupt. We have $1 billion budget. We can manage it. But, would it have been the end of the world to have some operational endowments in Maps 3 to ameliorate that issue? Mm-hmm. No, that would have been nice. And so I kind of put some political capital on the line to do something pretty thoughtful and innovative with Maps 4 that is different I guess just to say it's different in that it is way more focused and really more intentional about operational costs than anything we've ever done in MAPS before. And that was to set aside these rather large operational endowments. So the $978 million total package that I was referring to earlier includes over $100 million of operating funds. Right. And so where the city would bear the total cost of operations of these projects, take the youth centers, for example. The youth center component of MAPS 4 is $70 million for at least four state-of-the-art youth centers here in our city, which would be amazing, by the way. And as we sit here, I just this week cut the ribbon on a new teen center at Boys and Girls Club. Boys and Girls Club is a perfect model for something we need to see more around the city. Mm-hmm. Well, in addition to that $70 million for the buildings is $30 million for what is essentially an endowment, an operating fund to spin off proceeds to operate these senior centers, youth centers. And then a $10 million maintenance fund, because it's uniquely with youth centers, I mean, everything needs upkeep, but youth centers especially, I was in that teen center this week, and I mean, they've got like this drone technology, they've got like drawing technology, they've got video games, all these things. All of that stuff's going to be completely archaic in 3 years, you know? And so, God bless them, the Boys and Girls Club's going to have to raise money, you know, to replace that stuff, no doubt. In this case, with a $10 million fund just for that purpose, you know, our youth centers will have conservatively $400,000 a year to replace stuff forever into perpetuity. So I want people to know that, because I definitely face that issue occasionally. It's not a top issue for people, but it comes up every few days on social media, you know. Well, what about the operating costs? Nobody's thinking about the operating costs, which is frustrating to me, because it's like I've been talking about this all year long. Right. You know, I made this a centerpiece of my State of the City. Actually. So yeah, we have been very thoughtful, very innovative, and very intentional about operating costs with this MAPS. Don't vote against this because of operating costs, because that is the one thing we have really accentuated here. And I'm not saying like it's the be-all and end-all solution. We'll see how it all plays out 10 years from now. But if we had over $100 million in endowments for MAPS 3 projects, man, we'd be in a much different situation. So we think it's a game changer, and I definitely want people. You know, some people just vote on high-level surface issues, but for those who get 2 or 3 layers deep, this comes up, and I want them to know. I definitely want people to know about that, and have that as a talking point ready. If you're listening to this and you're hearing other people talk about operating issues, please know that this is a major element of it, and you can always learn more at OK. I'm sure the chamber's got stuff too, and of course the campaign website, but at okc.gov/maps4, we've got all the project lists, and you can also read the resolution, which is 10 pages long. Right. 10 years ago, the resolution was half a page long. And we went into a lot more detail this time, which I think is very helpful. It's very readable. And I really encourage people to read that resolution, because it also explains these operating funds. Right.
Yeah, there has been a lot of forethought in regards to those.
This is the most inclusive, as you know. I mean, we went through a year process, first with the website, kind of a call for ideas. Then we went through, you know, all these public meetings over the summer, 26 hours of council meetings. Still recovering. Yeah. I mean, this is the most thoughtful and well-planned MAPS, absolutely, no question, that we've ever had. And there's still, you know, the Citizen Advisory Board and all these years of implementation ahead of us, but we've never gone into a vote with this much detail already fleshed out. And people need to know that, and they need to feel some confidence in that.
So while our community has been exploring the MAPS 4 campaign process, we've also been celebrating MAPS 3. We just had the grand opening of Scissortail Park. We're seeing real progress on our convention center. What are you most proud of? You know, we're 10 years out. What are you most proud of from that program specifically?
Well, I mean, today it's hard not to be most excited about Scissortail Park. We were all still kind of in the glow of the opening and how magical that was to have 28,000 people there. I think that's such a catalyst for that whole area. I mean, the park is still not done either. You know, Union Station's going to be renovated. The south part of the park is still to open in a couple of years. But then you look at what's going to happen when the convention center opens on the east side and the Omni Hotel, and when the boulevard's fully finished out in all its landscaping, and then this blank slate of development potential that we have on the west side. You know, this is really unique opportunity to create, you know, basically a whole new part of your downtown without really displacing much. You know, it was because of the highway being there that on the other side of that highway was just hubcap shops and, the post office. There wasn't a lot going on there. And so we've had this opportunity, and it's going to play out, over 25 years probably. But that's really exciting, obviously. But yeah, I love all of Maps 3. And we're about to, just in the next few weeks, cut the ribbon on the Lake Draper Trail. Mm-hmm. So that's a Maps 3 project that was unique, that it was, trails and the senior centers were unique in that they were outside of the core. Obviously with Maps 4, most of it is outside the core. It's a reverse, but in Maps 3, not much was outside the core. And so trails is one example. Southeast Oklahoma City is getting these beautiful new trails around Lake Draper. And of course, we still also have 2 senior centers coming, one in Northeast and one in far South Oklahoma City. Those were just recently cited. But yeah, I'm excited. I love it all. But I'm excited with Scissortail Park. I'm excited for these new trails, and I'm excited when I think of those trails. It's just hard for me not to think about how in Maps 4, gosh, we have more in South Oklahoma City and more in Northeast Oklahoma City than we've ever had. And when I kind of broke out of the resolution. You're talking earlier about how the projects work together. There's no project called Northeast Oklahoma City. So you got to pull out of, the whole 16 list, the Clara Looper Center and the sidewalks and the placemaking and the beautification and the parks and the innovation district. You pull all that out and you make this list of things, that are in Northeast Oklahoma City. And when they all work together, you go, my gosh, that's, when I shared that list with longtime Northeast Oklahoma City leaders, people like Willa Johnson and others, they were almost moved to tears because they'd never seen such a holistic, comprehensive list of investments directly in Northeast Oklahoma City. And the list for South Oklahoma City is very similar. And again, I ran on this one OKC platform that just because all 36 mayors had come from Northwest Oklahoma City doesn't mean that needs to be the way it always is. That we've got to have a voice at the table for Northeast Oklahoma City, South Oklahoma City, and Maps 4 is such a embodiment of that philosophy.
So kind of continuing on that thought process, 10 years from now, assuming Maps 4 passes with flying colors in December, what do you hope its legacy is going to be?
I think I think there are a lot of things in Maps 4 that will be national models. I think my successors will be out giving speeches bragging about the diversion hub in Palomar and what we've done with homelessness. I think you just go down the list, the youth centers. There's such game-changing projects in here that are transformational in their subject areas. I think we've obviously had a lot to talk about as a city on a national, international level from the previous maps. And I just think that is absolutely the case for Maps 4. And I think you'll have people looking back also locally and saying, Maps finally did finally reached my neighborhood, finally reached my daily life. Sometimes people maybe don't appreciate it enough. They do love the downtown stuff, whether they think so or not. They value the thunder. They value all the things that have happened because of the investments in downtown. But there's still part of them, understandably, that wanted to see that same investment closer to their house. And they're getting that with Maps 4, and maybe, and I should also say closer to their way of life. There are, I think, a lot of different demographics in our city and different income levels in our city that maybe didn't feel like those things in the past were always for them. And I think they'll look back at Maps 4 and feel like it was the maps that the people created really through this process we just talked about, and that the people all get to enjoy. And layered on top of all of these other maps, it's really finally becoming a comprehensive, over by that point 36 years, a comprehensive transformation of our city from top to bottom, east to west, north to south. That is, again, I think will be a national model.
So I'm sure, just to kind of close our conversation on this, people who are listening and watching are fired up. They're ready to get involved. Yes! What is the best way for people to really engage in this campaign?
Well, I can give you a whole checklist. Obviously, the base minimum is vote on December 10th.
Yes, go vote.
And as we sit here, that's about 7 weeks away. And I know it's hard to sustain that level of energy, but if nothing else, take out your calendar right now and put it down. I always say, as we sit here, there's no organized opposition, and maybe if you're in one echo chamber, you're thinking, everything he said makes sense, this seems reasonable, I see the compromise, I see the comprehensive nature, I'm a yes, right? And I think everybody I know is a yes. Well, I'm here to tell you, there are people who are going to vote no, and it may have nothing to do really with all these virtues of it or lack of virtues that we've talked about. Just some folks who just always vote no, and there's going to be probably at least a quarter to a third of the city that'll fall into that category, and they won't necessarily even be able to articulate exactly why, but no voters are going to show up. So the yes voters who believe in our city's future and want to see this renaissance continue and extended to everybody across the city have got to show up. And whether there's seems like a lot of drama associated with it, the lack of drama can create apathy, to where people think, oh, that's fine, that's going to pass. You don't want to wake up on December 11th and realize that we've lost our opportunity to help victims of domestic violence, to help people suffering from mental illness and substance abuse issues in this city, to think that we've put ourselves on the precipice of straining our relationship with professional sports or whatever. I mean, there's so much at stake in this vote, so much at stake, and people need to really understand, especially if you're for this. If you're against it, the vote is on December 11th.
Right. That's what I'm taking the votes on Wednesday, guys.
The no votes are cast on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So if you're for it, you've gotta have that sense of urgency and understand that the stakes are so high, and use your sphere of influence to spread the word at the right time. I mean, in those last kind of couple weeks is when everything sort of accelerates, and use your social media, use your email list, use whatever it is you do. In the meantime, if you are that passionate, okay, so that was all about just vote. That was all about voting. If you want to go beyond that, go to our website. What's the web?
LoveYourOKC.com.
LoveYourOKC.com.
Yep.
There's a contact info there if you want to get people to speak at a group you're a part of. I think we'll send somebody if you have more than 3 people in your group. We will send somebody to speak to them. You might even get me. You might need 5 people in your group to get me. But we'll send people to your group. Obviously, we would love to hook you up with a bumper sticker or, the stickers that you guys are wearing. And we'll get you memes or logos or, bullet points. I mean, whatever it is that you need to help us, we'll help you. So I think that's important for people to know if they want to take it to that extra level. There is also a campaign headquarters that is manned all day, every weekday. Right. 200 North Harvey,
correct,
right across from the courthouse. Can't miss it. It's got Love Your OKC in the windows. So you can drop by there and get bumper stickers and stuff. As we get closer, you'll be able to get yard signs. Yard signs don't last more than a couple weeks physically, that's always the first thing. I want my yard sign.
Yeah.
And, we don't give them out until the last couple weeks of the campaign. But
we have to know how many to order. I had somebody get really mad at me in the last campaign because they didn't get a yard sign right away.
Yeah. Well, they just don't hold up. They're not physically capable of that. So you got to hold them till the end. But we'll definitely be happy to accommodate yard signs, and we want There's lots of ways that you can help, and you could even become a volunteer. There's a grassroots aspect to this campaign. We're out door knocking. We're out actually going to people's doors and hyping it up and explaining and answering questions. And so if you want to go and be on that level of volunteering, we would welcome that as well. So any which way you want to help, bring our city's future forward, then we're here for you.
And guys, we will have links to the campaign website, the campaign social media, okc.gov/maps4 in the description box and in the show notes. So please do check those out and give us a follow and a like if you haven't already. That's a great way to keep up with the campaign and get involved yourself. So.
Thank you very much, Mayor, for stopping by and speaking to us about Maps 4 and talking about all the great things that we have in store if we can pass this thing on December 10th. So you guys, like you said, get out and vote December 10th. The last day to register, if you're not registered to vote, is November 15th. So be sure to do that. Check on your voter registration. There are links to do that on loveyourokc.com so that we try to make that really, really easy for you to do. But thank you very much.
Yeah, vote December 10th. Vote yes. Thank you very much. This was fun.
So the Chamber is sponsoring a really fun event in Oklahoma City about 2 weeks from when we're filming called the OKBio Brewfest.
That's right.
Held at Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark. Nate, you've been before. I have not. Tell me what to expect if I'm going to Brewfest.
Well, if you go to Brewfest, what you're going to get at that event, and this is what's a little bit different about Brewfest than some of the other local brewery tasting events that might happen around town. At Brewfest, not only do you have really good representation from a lot of the local brewers, a lot of fledgling brewers that may or may not have their own facilities up and running yet. So you get to try a lot of things in that vein, but you also get to try a lot of things from Oklahoma wineries, Oklahoma distilleries. So it's not just beer. It's a lot of other things. This is basically a fundraiser for the Oklahoma Bioscience Association. So this is why the Chamber is a sponsor of the event, because we are all about the OK Bio Association,
that's
right?
And beer.
And beer as well, right?
We're fans
there's a lot
of beer.
That's right. There's a lot of science that actually goes into the brewing process and the distillation process and all those types of things, fermentation in general. So that's kind of the connection there. But it's a really neat event. So it's this year's is actually going to be Thursday, November 7th.
That's right.
Chickasaw Bricktown Ballpark.
$35 for the ticket.
$35 if you get it in advance. It's $40 at the door.
So that's a really good deal for the amount of breweries and distilleries and wineries that'll be there.
It absolutely is. If you're a connoisseur of these types of events, that sometimes these can get a little bit more expensive than that. So
totally.
this is actually a really good price point and a really good way. It's really convenient, really good way to check out some of the new stuff that our breweries and distilleries and wineries are churning out. So.
And that's from 5 to 7 p.m.?
5 to 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yeah, it's perfect. So come out and see us. We're going to be there. I'm going to be there. Kaylee will not be there because, where will you be?
I'm going to be with the Chamber on our inner city visit. We're going to Houston November 7th and 8th. And I think we may have talked about that on the podcast before. So we've been in the planning process for this for a few months now. We're taking about 60 people with us, and that includes, representatives from city council, it includes business leaders, community leaders, and we'll all be going just to learn from Houston. So it won't be quite as fun as Brewfest, or maybe it'll be more fun. We'll see. We'll have to compare notes
We will.
in 2 weeks and see who has the most fun.
I'm just going to go on record and say that I will have more fun at Brewfest than you will at Inner City Visit, but that's just me.
I tend to have a lot of fun everywhere I go, so I'm thinking I'm going to have fun in Houston, but we'll figure that out when we get back.
How are we going to operationalize that variable?
We need to have a rating system,
exactly.
and then we'll tabulate the data and get back to you on who actually had more fun.
That's right.
TBD, that's to be determined.
Bingo.
So you were telling me before we started filming about this Moto DIY. I'm not a motorcycle person, but this is a really cool concept. So will you share a little bit more about that?
Right. So we're all about sharing what we think are different and cool business ideas that people in Oklahoma City have. And so my friend Eric P., we'd roll all over town when we were in high school in his Pontiac trying to meet girls. And so we were sometimes successful in that effort, sometimes
not.
Sometimes they were classy, sometimes they were not.
Oh my gosh.
We cast a wide net. You gotta, in love as in life in general, you have to kind of work your way through some things sometimes.
That's
the way
that's
the approach
Pontiac
that we
was
took.
helping you through that.
That's
so
right.
That's nice.
Right. TLC Scrubs may have been written with me in mind. I'm not sure.
I'm never going to listen to that song the same now.
But at any rate, Eric P., longtime Gatewood resident, and but he's also a car and motorcycle enthusiast of late. And so he let me know about OkiMoto, which is a new business. It's in kind of the fledgling, what's called the Ironworks district. And so this is sort of west of Film Row, kind of that area. So
downtown adjacent.
Downtown adjacent, yeah. And so chamber member Chip Fudge, who's been a longtime chamber member, he's involved in a lot of properties down there. And so he's actually owns some of the properties where OkiMoto is located. At any rate, I thought it was kind of a cool business idea because it's sort of like it's both a workshop area and a club and a lounge area for motorcycle enthusiasts and people that like to work on motorcycles. So if you're at all ever had to do any sort of like car repair or anything like that, sort of mechanical, where you know that you need some tools that you don't have, it can be a big pain in the ass to go back and forth from the auto parts store and the hardware store, and you're trying to get the right tools. And we've all kind of had that experience if you're any sort of a DIYer.
I've never had that experience. I just want to be clear about that.
Like
never.
No. But at any rate, so what's cool about this is that they have different membership levels depending on how much workshop time that you need. How much work do you need to do on your motorcycle, customization, that sort of thing. So they've got all the tools there. You pay a monthly fee and you have access to the shop depending on how much work you need to do. And of course, you have also access to the club or the lounge area. And I guess it's a pretty cool hangout. They have some regular events that happen there.
Wow.
Get-togethers and that sort of thing. So if you're a like-minded motorcycle enthusiast, customization guy, be sure to check out OkiMoto. And thanks to Eric P. for the heads up on that.
And the Pontiac rides around town.
Yeah,
thanks Eric P. Great.
those were the days. So a couple things I want to mention before we move on.
Okay.
One is I want to say happy birthday to Tracy Hayes.
Tracy Hayes.
You may have noticed the buttons that we're wearing. So
Tracy Hayes button.
That's right. So happy birthday, Tracy. You mentioned Josh Vaughn last time. It was his birthday the day that we were shooting this.
That's right.
So celebrating everybody's birthdays on our production staff. So again, thank you very much to both of you guys for helping us out with this. We really do appreciate you guys trying to make us look good.
And we love you. You're great all the time.
Right.
I don't know why.
This is a good experience. This is a really good experience for us. At any rate, you make us feel good about ourselves when we're shooting this thing. We all
Tracy
need a little
takes care
positive
of all
affirmation
of us.
every now and
She
then.
makes sure that we're camera ready.
That's right.
She tells us when we're being dumb. We always appreciate
Which is quite
her
often.
Which is always. So.
Absolutely. Bingo,
Thank you, Tracy.
bango. That's
Happy
right.
birthday to you.
So, I did want to mention that. And the other thing I wanted to mention is I wanted to give you a congratulations for how well Elevate went yesterday.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We had such a good time. If Nate and I seem a little exhausted, it's because we had to report to work yesterday at 5:30 in the morning, and we were there till like 7:30, maybe 8 o'clock. It was quite the day, but it went so well, and we were so happy with the reception of this new event. It's something that we're going to do every year. We actually have the 2020 date already set for September 10th at the Cox Convention Center. So we will be talking about this in the future, I'm sure, but I think everyone was really happy with the professional development experience. The speakers were great. I think it just went as well as it possibly could. So we're celebrating that for sure. The whole team did an excellent job making that happen.
Yeah, everybody did a great job, so that was really cool. Part of that event was an after party, the Elevate after party, where we had chamber member exhibitors, caterers, breweries also.
Yep. We had 2 breweries there. Both of the chamber member breweries had a presence there.
Yeah.
And it was a really fun after party. I mean, you would think people who have been at a conference from 7:30 in the morning wouldn't stay,
hanging around getting
but everyone
professionally
was,
developed all day long.
They've been very busy all day, but everyone stayed and had a great time. There was music. I mean, it was just a really fun party. So it was a good way to end the event for sure.
Awesome. Yeah, and so one of the chamber member exhibitors that was there at the after party was a new place in Deep Deuce called Bar Ciccetti. And so you and I have both been there a couple of times. So we just kind of wanted to tell you guys a little bit about Bar Ciccetti because we think that they're doing a really good job there. So
my first time there was when they were showing the OU Texas game. So it's a good place to watch sporting events. They were open that Saturday, had great happy hour specials.
Yeah, they did their happy hour specials for the game. And I don't know if they're always going to do that, but I know they've done that for the last couple of football games. So that's nice. And they have a 300-inch screen so you can...
It was a really great place to just kick back with a bunch of friends. It was a great atmosphere. I had a great time.
Yeah, so pretty cool spot. The other interesting thing about it is they have a happy hour every day from 4 to 6 where they have really good deals on both food and drink. But then they also have a late night happy hour every day from 11 to whenever, 11 to close. So we've talked before about Gun Izakaya in the Paseo district and how they're open a little bit late. So this is another late night spot. So if you're out and about and you're looking for a place to eat at kind of the late night hours, honestly, I tend to eat kind of late no matter what. And so I'm always kind of on the lookout of new places and places to try that might be open late. So this would be a good spot. Yeah, absolutely. So
the happy hour especially is a great way to try, their menu items and give it a shot. It was really enjoyable.
Yeah, bingo bango for Bar Ciccetti.
Bingo bango, Bar
That's
Ciccetti.
right.
Another big thing for Oklahoma City is that we are back in Thunder season.
It's Thunder season.
It's Thunder
That's right.
season.
So they opened up last night, the day that we're recording this. Last night was the first game, and then so tomorrow will be the first home game of the season.
That's right. So Nate, I have a confession. I don't know very much about the Thunder team anymore. Help me. Who should I be watching for?
I'm not sure that a lot of people in town know a lot about the Thunder team. The current squad. There's been a lot of turnover.
Yeah. I'm feeling a little overwhelmed by all of it. So, is there anything you can tell me that'll get me back in? What is it? Tell me right now.
Well, frankly, kind of the unknown about the season is really a really big driver for me to kind of want to watch and see what happens, because we're not really sure how things are going to go. I think that there are a couple things clear from some of the preseason activity and some of the preseason games that have been played. I think there is going to be a lot more ball movement and also an off-ball movement, which hasn't always been the case with some of the Thunder teams and ball sharing and that sort of thing. So I think that's going to be a little bit different and a little bit interesting. But we've still got some really good players, and nobody knows what the roster is going to end up looking like at the end of the season. But as it's composed right now, I think it's going to be really interesting to see and watch and see how things kind of mesh together. Chris Paul, obviously, he was here a long time ago with the Hornets, and now he's back.
It's cool to hear that story too about his return, back to Oklahoma City. That's really interesting.
Yeah, for sure. And then, of course, we've got Delano Gallinari, who's honestly a really, really good basketball player. He's one of those guys that if he's not on your team, you just hate him because he's just good at everything. He's just a good, all-around good player. He's like, why is this guy scoring on us so much? Well, it turns out he's actually a pretty good ball player. Yeah, and so now he's playing for us, and so that's been interesting. And of course, we still have Steven Adams.
So that means your Halloween costume
is still in effect.
Yeah, that's right. It's almost time.
Working on a Steven Adams Halloween costume for a few months now.
And it is a go for 2019.
It's looking good.
Let's
right now. Yeah, this is great. I'm looking forward to the new Thunder season, and yes, just seeing what happens. And we mentioned this before, but it's kind of going to be interesting and maybe a little bit more fun in some sense because there aren't a whole lot of expectations. We're not really sure what to expect here, and so I think it's going to be fun to just sort of cheer for our team and see how things kind of roll out, right?
And Oklahoma City is always a great sports city. I mean, we are very passionate about sports
here. Great supporters, yeah.
And there's no reason for that to change now for the Thunder. Yeah. So thank you. You got me pumped back up. I'm ready to thunder up, and it's going to be a good season.
Ready to thunder up. Bingo, bango. That's what we're after. Up. Let's do it. All right. So that really wraps it up for us today. We really want to thank Mayor Holt again for spending the time with us to talk about Maps 4, and hopefully that was really informative for everybody.
I feel like we both learned a lot from Mayor Holt's visit and really appreciated his time here with us. It was a great experience. So thank you again, Mayor Holt.
Yeah, I agree. If you have any feedback for us, the best way to get that to us is really just to email us, and that is networking@okcchamber.com. Or if you prefer to reach out to us via social media, the Chamber's social media accounts are generally OKC Chamber.
That's right, and we always appreciate it if you give us a rating, a subscription, review. All of those things help our show reach the right people and help people learn more about what's going on in Oklahoma City. So thanks for that.
Absolutely, and also if you have subscribed to this show recently and you like it, please let your friends know as well. We really are interested in continuing to get the word out about the Audacity Velocity OKC show. So thank you again, and we will see you all next time.
Bye.